Hi folks, we're going to go ahead and learn HTML the easy, fast, super powerful way. Easy because we're going to be using HTML editor to generate most of the HTML code, so it's easy on you in looking at stuff and getting stuff done. Super powerful because we're going to be using some HTML frameworks to look at responsive, dynamic, data, widgets, templates, a whole bunch of advanced features. To get started, we're going to go ahead and use topichero.com. So open up a new browser and just click topichero.com. That's topic, T-O-P-I-C, hero, H-E-R-O.com. It'll go ahead and bring up a marketing site, and just hit the browser back button, and that should take you to the working part. We're just going to go ahead and do the standard start of programming, and that's basically a hello world. And we're going to go ahead and look at the source code that's associated with that, because that's going to show us the HTML. And notice we've got a P tag. Tags are basically things enclosed in angle brackets. Here's the P, and then here's the NP. You always have a slash for the ending of the tag. Put tags around things to create formatting for those things. This is paragraph formatting. So in essence, it's going to basically put space before the paragraph, after the paragraph, that type of formatting. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and just try and do things kind of quick. We're going to go ahead and format this by turning it into a header. Now, you don't need to follow along with the menu because we're really just going over the HTML. And so what we're looking at here is what are the tags. As we get into more and more features, we're going to go beyond tags to other features that are generated automatically by the system. We're not concerned about what's being generated, we're concerned about what the HTML is. Okay, so this is a header. Notice it's bigger, it's got a little formatting itself, with some space before, space after. Now we can change that to a header 2, gets a little smaller. And what does the source code look like? H2 in front of it. Okay, it's a smaller header. And the same is true for headers 1 through 6. Just giving myself to some more stuff to work on. So we're going to go ahead and do a bold this time, and go ahead and look at the source code. Now there's a number of different ways of doing bold, as there are for doing many different things. In HTML, you can do things a number of different ways. In this case, an additional tag has been put in around. Notice paragraph can have some things bolded and some things not bolded within the paragraph. Notice with the header, it sort of had its own standoff. It's sort of separate from the paragraph because the header is all of one specific type. So we're going to see some things that can go within others, like the strong can go within a paragraph, and we're going to see other things that sort of stand out off on their own, like the header. Moving on. We're going to go ahead and take this bold off and instead put italics on it. And what does it look like? Well, we have an EM here. Again, there are other ways of doing other types of tags, but this system generates EM tags for italic. Let's see what happens when we do an underline. All right, something happened. It's not just a tag. Okay, we have an attribute, and the attribute is the style attribute. And attributes can just be single assignments, or they can be multiple assignments. In this case, the style attribute is actually a very important attribute. It's the most common attribute you're going to see, and it can have a number of different assignments. And how they do that is they break things by the semicolon. So style has actually a number of different values. In this case, it's only got one value. Text decoration, which is being assigned to underline. Okay, so this is another way of doing things in HTML. Okay, notice each one of these has a paragraph style. Let's move to some other bit unusual things. We're going to go ahead and do Strikethrough and take a look at that. And here it's the same attribute style with the same value being assigned, in this case, line through. Here we're just going to do part of it in order to see its effect more easily. Superscript. And what does that look like? Okay, here we've got the superscript or SUP tag just around the world part. Notice hello is in there. It's not superscript. Only that world part has that SUP tag around it. Subscript, as you would expect, it's got a sub tag around it. So what are we going to go do next? We're going to go ahead and look at pre. Okay, looks like this is a tag that takes up a block type area, like paragraph or header. And it's basically just turning everything into sort of a regimented size, a type character structure. So with other formatting, things can vary depending upon the font style that's being used, but here it's more of a fixed size. It's by character count. That's the amount of spacing being taken. We're going to go ahead and use another one of those formats, block formats. Here you've got indentation. And notice it's a containing block. So it'll take whatever it's going around and it'll contain it. So it's putting the paragraph actually within it. So you can have multiple paragraphs within a block quote. Let's move over to some colorful stuff. Okay, I just want to show you the rest of the menu. We couldn't get to it with the other format. So we're going to do the text color. We're going to turn it blue. And we're going to go ahead and look at the source code. And what happened? Well, we had a span. We've seen the span before. We've had the style. We've seen that before. Before we were looking at text decoration, but now we've got color. And color can be done in a number of different ways. Okay, you can specify it with these hexadecimal numbers, basically the digits 0 through 9 and the letters A through F. Or there's several other ways of doing it, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. We're going to go over here to W3 Schools. They have a color picker, and that allows you to choose colors, and there's a number of different ways. We could just put in a word red. We could have put in an RGB code or HSL code. You can change different colors, choose different colors, and you're going to get different codes for them. You can change the percentages. Again, the codes change. So we could use one of those. Let's go and see if we can use that red word and see what happens with the color. Okay, so instead of this hexadecimal type representation, we're going to use red, and we're just clicking on the OK here. And it turned red. But you can use numerous different codings of colors by finding a color picker. You just look up W3 Schools and look under color picker. There are other color pickers out there too. Now we can also do the background color. And you see the background color there. So you can have both a color and a background color. And what does that look like? Well, it's just the span style attribute, but in this case the value is background color, and its assigned value is 00FFFF. We can do font sizing also. Just going to change this to 36. What the hey, make it look big. And what's the HTML associated with it? Well, we change to another style attribute value, font size, and it's 36 PT. There, just like with colors, the way of assigning sizes can be different. You can have PT, PX, there's a lot of different ways. We're just going to go with what the editor's giving us in this case. We're trying to get through this stuff fast so you learn a lot. But there are other variations. You can look at other types of font sizes, and you can look that up. Okay, after font size, what do you think we're going to go to? Font family. Let's use Comic Sans. Notice the font changed. And it's not surprising what we're going to see. Font family. And it's Comic Sans. Okay, MS. Notice that besides having a colon here, there's a semicolon. Okay, there's a couple of features, a semicolon and the single quote marks. So what font family is, its value is actually set to a list of different font family types. Sans serif is one type, and then Comic Sans is another type. If the browser has Comic Sans MS, it's going to use that. If it doesn't have that one, it's going to use sans serif. So font family is actually a list of values, and depending upon what's available in the browser, you're going to have different things, different fonts being used. The other thing about it is you've got these single quotes. And note that sans serif is one word with no spaces in it. However, Comic Sans MS has got spaces in it. And in order to have a single value here, you need to have the single quotes containing it. Notice there are double quotes on the outside, and you have to have a difference of quoting type in order to, you can't have the same quoting type or it's going to think it's different things. Style has got to be completely contained within one type of quoting, and then any quoting within it has to be of a different type. And there are ways of getting a third level too by putting backslashes in front, but we're not going to get into that. Aligning things, well, here we go. We're just going to use some of the aligning. Let's that put it too far out. Let's move it to the center. Okay. So that centered it, and what does that look like in HTML? Again, we've got the style attribute, but in this case, the alignment, the text alignment value, is for the entire paragraph. While in the other cases, you could have different fonts, different bolding, other types of things within a paragraph, the alignment is really assigned to the entire paragraph. So in this case, we have style, text align, center. Okay, so we're centering the entire paragraph. That's how the alignments work. Let's go ahead and do some indenting. In this case, we padding. Okay, padding on the left means we're putting some space on the left. There are other ways of doing indenting. There's other ways of doing lots of different things. And we're going 30. In this case, PX instead of PT. So we're not going to get into the different types of sizing, but notice that there are different sizing types. Now we're going to start looking at some. Okay, so I just hit a return, and let's see what actually happened. Well, look at that. We've got the P tag, but we have something in there. What's that funny thing? That's actually a symbol, and basically it's indicating that there's a non-breaking space, that there's basically a space in there, but HTML automatically removes a lot of spacing, that type of thing. So in order to put a space in there, you use a special symbol, and symbols begin with an and, end with a semicolon. So this paragraph has something in it, basically just in order to have a line. So this is actually something you're going to see a lot of, and this is going to be the most common special character you're going to see. But there are other special characters. We're going to insert another special character. And let's just insert the copyright sign. Okay, so when we hit the return, it put a non-breaking space in there, but now we have the copyright in there. And it's just the and sign, the semicolon at the end, and then a name describing it. There's other ways of encoding it. There's ways that you can use numbers to encode it. Again, we're not going to go into some of the details at this point. We're just going to cover a whole bunch of features, and we can go over details later. We don't need this space anymore. We can get rid of it because we've got something in there. The paragraph's not going to disappear. There are some other things that can be inserted. Let's go ahead and insert here's the non-breaking space insertion. If you want to put in a non-breaking space in, let's just look at that, because we sort of talked about it already. So it looks like a space, and it can be used to put spaces that are not automatically taken out. Where do we put it? We put it over here, and you can see it's over there. That's basically a space. You can easily put a space there, but that's if there's other stuff there. It's non-breaking space is sort of, you know, like a anchor to put something there to keep the paragraph formatting. Yeah. So the space got removed. That's what happens with the HTML in many places. You know, from a trimming perspective, here in the middle, it doesn't disappear. So in order to get some space before and after, sometimes you have to have this non-breaking space. Let's go ahead and insert something else. We're going to insert a page break, and that's, well, we'll look at it. Here's a page break. Notice it's not really an HTML feature. It's something special to this editor for a printing perspective. It's used by the editor for printing. But it does have an HTML feature that is of interest to know. This angle bracket, exclamation point, dash dash, and at the end dash dash, other angle bracket, that's a comment. So you can put comments in your HTML. So what happened, it actually just put in an HTML comment. But the system's going to use that. That's not something that's standard, used in the standard way. Page break is not a comment that's used in a standard way in any other HTML tool. If you want to put a horizontal line in, it's kind of light there, but you've got a bit of a line there. That is something, and that is used in some cases. It's an HR. Notice it's a single tag, doesn't have an end or beginning. HR, and then basically a slash saying that it's ending. Notice after each of these hello worlds, it's got spacing in front and spacing at back because it's a paragraph by itself. But we can also insert a page, excuse me, let me just undo that. Let's go and insert a, they don't have an special character to insert, so let's go ahead and look at the source code and just edit in there. We're going to put a BR in. It's very much like an HR, but it's basically a line break. So we got an additional line break in there. And the system itself, this is just the editor. It changed it to a paragraph. You could put a couple of different BRs in there. Now, the systems sometimes do their own thing. They make their own translations, and that's what happened in this case. But if you got a whole bunch of BRs, it wraps them in a paragraph. That's just a peculiarity of the editor. This editor wants everything to be some type of larger structure, and a paragraph is a larger structure than the breaks. So you can have breaks within paragraphs. So we're going to move on to Another structure besides paragraph. A paragraph we've been seeing is pretty standard. We also saw span, which is something can be within paragraph. We're going to look at another block structure. We already looked at paragraph, block quote, pre. Now we're going to look at div. So we just changed this div, and notice what happened. The formatting in front and formatting in back below disappeared. Now this is a block, but it does not assume that there's paragraph formatting. It's basically just a structure to contain things. And we can look at the source code, and it just replaced the P with a div. Div is very common. It's a technique for organizing things in groups, and you're going to see div used to group things and subgroup things and subgroup things and subgroup things. Paragraph, because it's got formatting associated with it, doesn't have that type of group. Now we're going to move on to something that's a little more complex structure. Now notice when we hit the returns, it's assuming that these are divs, not paragraphs. So you can take a look at that. That's just an editor feature. It's not HTML, but it basically threw in some divs instead. Now we're going to go ahead and create a list, and we're just going to say okay, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the source code and see what happened. Notice we've got a UL tag and an ending UL tag, but within it we've got LI tags. Okay, so that's how you do a list. It's a group within a group. You know, you got the LI tag within the UL tags, and you got numerous different LI tags. We're going to go ahead and play with the list a little to see how it changes when we change the type of list. So we're going to do the simplest thing. We're just going to go ahead and change it to circle. And what happens with the source code? Well, we got the style attribute, list style type being circle. Okay, another style attribute again. In this case with different values. Again, we're going to see the style attribute a whole bunch. Now let's change it over here to numbers. What happens? Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And what's going to happen with HTML? The UL changed to an OL. Okay, and that's the difference between numbering and unnumbered. And let's just change it to upper alpha. What the hey? And again, it's the style type, list style type. No big surprise there. We move on to a summary of what we've covered in this lesson. We talked about the P or paragraph tag. We talked about tags having a beginning and an ending, followed by angle brackets and a slash. There's additional information that you can actually change how some of the formatting for the paragraph tag and other tags behaves by working with CSS, but we're not covering CSS in this tutorial. Headers, other concept was introduced was blocking things, that you group things and there's forming around the group of things. We talked about bold, and this is basically tags within some of the groupings. So you're just working on part of the stuff. Italic, this is an emphasized tag. You can also, there's other tags out there. We're just showing one specific set. Underline and strikeout. We talked about span, which works within group tags, such as paragraph or div. And we specifically style attribute, and a very important attribute. Other concepts introduced were that there are multiple value attributes. So attributes can not only have one value, they can have multiple ones, and each value is separated, set is separated by a semicolon. Code look basically just looks like a computer put it out, like computer programming. Superscript, subscript. Coloring things, we talked about different coloring codes, and we looked at the color picker. Background color, same thing. Different font sizes. We provide a link here for you to look for more details about font sizing, and it's not just a single value. There's more complexity to it, and you can do your research into that if you want. We provide a link for you. Font families. The interesting thing about this, you typically group fonts into families of things that look similar to each other. So if one doesn't work, the next one will work. Text align, pre, where you have character count is a fixed size for each character, so the size is based upon the character count. Block quote does one type of indenting, but there's other ways of doing indenting. Non-breaking space or symbols with the and sign and the semicolon. And you can see some examples here of the multitude of symbols that are out there. You can see there's a whole bunch of different ones, and there are different ways of encoding them also. And there's a slew of them. Each one of these links takes you to another set. You got a whole bunch. These are just codes. They don't have symbol names, but those codes can be put within the and the semicolon. One other point, within the font family, we talked about a specific attribute value could have a list of values within it, not just a single value. And we talked about them being separated by a comma, and also spaces are allowed with internal quotes, and we also talked about quotes within quotes. We talked about tags that are by themselves. They don't have ending tags. We also talked about comments. And we also talked about blocks within blocks and lists. And there's a lot more detail that you can get into. That list style type can have a lot of different values. You can see them all here. Just like a lot of other features within HTML, the attributes can take on a multitude of different values, and it's not just a few, it can be quite a few. And last but not least, please subscribe so you can take a look at the following lessons.